Let us solve the question number 12 in the unit 1 of your question bank. And in this exercise, we are supposed to trace the bubble sort technique on the data that is provided over here. So let's look at how the bubble sort is performed on these numbers. So I'm going to switch over to the Excel for explanation purpose. So this is the list that is given to me. So if I put them in the array, the first element 65 will be at the array of 0. Next one will be array of 1, that is the index location 1, and so on up to 7. So there is going to be 8 element altogether. So we know very well that when there are 8 elements, there will be 7 passes. So 7 times you have to go through this list. So 7 times you have to go through this particular list in order to achieve the bubble sort. And before we venture into the bubble sort, just remind you what will happen in the bubble sort. So in the bubble sort is like if you just jump into a swimming pool or any pond or anything. So as you breathe out, the largest bubble will come first out to the surface of water, followed by the second largest and so on, and the tiny bubbles will come at the end. So this is the idea of how the bubble behaves. Same behavior is shown in the data values over here. So let's look at how this is being performed. So I have the data over here. Now what we are supposed to do is in this given list, the largest bubble, in this case the largest number, has to bubble out first. So when you look at here, you will notice that 80 is the largest one. This is the one that in terms of the bubble, that bubble 80 will come out first. This will be followed by the next largest bubble, that is 65, and so on and so forth. So the largest bubbles will come out first out of this list, not to the surface. Out of this list, this will be followed by the smaller bubble. So let us start with the pass number 1. Okay. So in the pass number 1, we start with the first two elements over here. So I have written as it is. Okay. You compare the first two elements, that is the element at 0 and the element at 1. You compare them. You notice which one is larger. Remember, when I say the largest element bubbles out of the list. So what is the meaning of here is if I say take the surface, and if I say that the largest bubble will come out of the surface of water, this is the end point. So where is the end point in my case for this list? End point is here. So this is the end point. So at the end of the first list, the largest element will come to the surface here. That is the end point. How the water bubble will come to the surface of the water. Same thing is true in case of the numbers over here. So let's start with the bubble sort. We have the first two element. Let us compare 65 with 25. Remember, in order for us to bubble out the element, we have to see to it that the largest number slowly goes from this side to this side, and then finally reaches the surface over here. So somehow we have to push them to the other side. So let us look at 65 and 25. You notice that 65 is larger than 25. So you know our intention is to push this larger bubbles or larger numbers to the surface. So we are going to swap. You have to write this one in the examination. So swap 25 and 65 and 25. So some people write compare whether 65 is greater than, that is the greater than 25. Some people write like this. That extra step I feel like it is not really required, because anyhow we know that we are going to, when we take two elements, we are going to compare which one is greater than the other, whether 65 is greater than 25 or not. So 65 is greater than 25, which is obvious case. That is why we are going to swap the elements. What is the meaning of saying you swap the element? Position of 65 and 25 are interchanged. So you bring 25 to the first position and 65 to the next position. And then you start go to the second iteration. In the second iteration, you you have taken the first element. You go to the second element over here. You compare 65 with the 10. You notice that 65 is larger, and our intention is to push the larger bubbles to the surface. So since 65 is greater than 10, we are going to swap 65 and 10. You have to write this one. We are going to swap 65 and 10. So 65, 10 is brought to the position of 65 and 65 is brought to the position of 10. So in the next iteration, you take, so you've taken this one, you've taken this one, you are now at this position. You compare whether 65 is greater than 80. You notice that in this case, it is not the case. 65 is not greater than 80. So you don't do anything. So you have to write this one. You are not going to swap anything. So this element is over, this is over, this is over. Now you are at this position. Take this 80 and compare it at this iteration. Compare 80 with the 25. You notice that 80 is larger, and our intention is to push the larger element to its boundary. So we are going to swap the 80 with the 25. So the 80 will come to the position of 25, and the 25 will come to the position of 80. So remember 25, which was at the index location 4, and 80 is at the index location 3. After swapping, what will happen is 25 will be at the index location 3, and 80 will be there at the index location 4. So you have swapped them. Now let's go to the next step. In the next step, we are here now. So we are going to check whether 80 with the compare 80 with 11, and you notice that 80 is greater than 11. So you swap their position. So when you swap, 11 will occupy the position of 80, and 80 will occupy the position of 11. In the next iteration, you start doing the same thing. Compare 80 with 45. So you notice that 80 is larger, so you swap their interchange their position. So in the iteration, next iteration, so this 45 will come here. So in the next iteration over here, that is the 80 is compared with the last element, and that is 20. And you know very well that 80 is larger than 20, and 80 and 20, their positions are interchanged. So at the end of the first pass, you notice that the largest bubble, that is the bubble 80, is brought to the surface. So it is brought to the surface here. So it is brought to the surface. Now we are going to bring the next, in the next pass, we are going to bring the second largest element. So let's go to the pass number 2. And in the pass number 2, we will start with the again first element and the next element. So compare 25 with the 10. You notice that 25 is larger. You interchange their position. So 10 will come to the position of 25. 25 will come to the position of 10. In the second iteration, take 25 and 65. You notice that the 65 is larger, 25 is smaller. So you don't do any swapping. In the next step over here, so in the next step, you compare this 25 with I think I wrote it. Okay, no, I've written it properly. So next you compare the 65 with the 25, and you bring this 25 here and the 65 to this because there are two 25s. I just got confused. So there are two. If you look at the list over here, you have 225. So I just got confused whether I wrote the two times, because there is a 2 times 25. You are going to compare 25 with 25. So you bring this 25 to this position and 65 to this position. So you have uh, the second largest bubble is bring. See, what is the intention is to bring this 65 to the boundary over here. Okay, so Let's go to the next step. In the next step, you compare 65 with 11. So you notice that 65 with 11, they are 65 is greater than 11. So you interchange the position, you swap 65 and 25, done. Let's go to the next step. In the next step, you compare 65 with 45, and what you notice that 65 is greater. So you bring the 65, interchange the position of 65 and 45. So that is being done. Let's go to the next iteration. And in the next iteration, what you notice, you compare 65 with 20, and definitely there is not going to be any swapping. So you just keep them as it is. So at the end of the second pass, so 80 is already out of the list. Remember, we are not going to compare 65 with the 80. It is not there because see what happened is this 80, that is the largest bubble, has reached the surface. What is the meaning of saying if the bubble reaches the surface of the water, it just goes out? You cannot find them. It is out of the surface of water. You will not be able to touch that bubble anymore. So this 80 is actually gone out of the list. It is gone. It has reached the surface. Now it is the time of 65, so which is the second largest one. This is reaching the surface now. Okay. So it has reached the surface. When it reaches surface, 65 is gone. It is evaporated. It is a vacuum. It is gone out into the air. So the end of the second pass, you notice that the 65 and the 80 are there at the surface. So let's go. Remember, in the next iteration, we will not compare anything with the 65 and 85 because they are gone. They are not there in the list. Okay. So now let's go to the next iteration. So again, we start from the first. 10 is compared with the 25, and they are there at the right position. So there is no swapping. Next iteration, 25 with the 25. Remember, 25 is not greater than 25. Very important thing. We are comparing whether 25 is greater than 25. 25 is equal to 25. So there is no swapping at all. In the next iteration, the 25 and 11 are compared. Now 25 and 11 are compared, they are interchanged. So you swap 25 and 11. In the next iteration, 25 and 45 are compared. So there is no swapping at all. So you don't write any swapping. In the next iteration, 45 and 20 is compared. You know very well, 45 and 20, if you compare them, there is going to be a swapping because 45 is greater than 20. So you bring them to this position. Okay, you bring 45 to this position. Now again, you are not going to compare 45 with 65 because I already told you 65 is gone out of the list. These two bubbles are out of the list, so you can't find them anymore. So at the end of the iteration 3, what you notice here is you have three elements. So three bubbles which were there here, 80 and what was that, 65, and the next one was 45. So next 45, they have all reached the surface. This is gone, this is gone, this is gone. So all of them are out of the surface, out of the list in this case. Let's go to the next pass over here. So in the next pass, again, we start from the first element. 10 is compared with the 25. There is not going to be any change. 11 is compared with the 25. There is not going to be any change. Okay. There is not going to be any change. So 11 and what is this? Okay, I think let's put it like this. If I put minus, Excel is not happy. Let's go to the next one. 25 is compared with the 25. There is not going to be any change. This one is an error there. Okay. Then we have, what is the next thing? 25 is compared with the, where am I? Okay. 25 is compared with the 20. And what you notice that 25 is there at a wrong position. So you interchange 25 and This 25 and 20. So you write a swap. Remember, this one is for swap. You have to write that thing during the examination, which element you are swapping. So you swap them, and at the end of the pass number 4, you notice that 25, 45, 65, 80 are out of the list. So these many items are out of the list. They are bubbled out of the list. Let's go to the pass number 5. So compare 10 with 11. 10 is not greater, so you don't swap anything. Compare 11 with the 25, there is no swapping. Compare 25 with the 20, definitely there is going to be a swapping. So you write there is going to be a swapping. So 25 and 20 are swapped out. So 25 is brought here, and 10 is brought, 20 is brought here. So at the end of the pass number 5, these many elements are out of the list. So you are left with the now very few bubbles are there with you. So let's start with the again pass number 6. You compare 10 with 11. There is no change. You compare 11 with the 20. There is no change. So no swapping, no swapping. So both that aside, no swapping. So again, these are already gone. I have told you these are already gone out of the list, so they are not there. So at the end of the pass number 6, even this 20 is out of the list. Let's go to the pass number 7. So you compare 10 with 11. Definitely 10 is smaller, so the largest element is already there at its proper position. So you are not going to swap anything. There is nothing left over here because these are all these elements are gone. Okay, they are bubbled out of the surface, so they are gone out of the surface. So these bubbles are out, and you are left with only 2 elements. So you just make one comparison, and you notice that fortunately 11 is there at its right position. So what you are going to do, you keep them as it is. So at the end of the pass number 7, you have even this last but one element being popped out of the list. Now you are left with only one element, and there is nothing you can do. No comparison, it's not possible. So you stop at pass number 7, and you notice that all the elements are in the sorted order. So this is called the tracing of the bubble sort, and if it comes up, do solve this during the examination. Thank you for your interest, and we will meet again with some other exercise. Thank you.